Hi there. My name is Jeffrey Allen Jalen Ricks, and I am the youngest son of Quentin and Thelma Ricks. I have here in my hand a set of my father's rattlesnake teeth. Yes, rattlesnake teeth. Now, what were those for, you ask? Well, when I was growing up, and we would invite friends over to the house, unsuspecting friends of our loving Christian home, my dad would walk up to them and say, "Would you like to see my rattlesnake teeth?" And some people kind of suspect something was up at the time, but they would be polite with my dad, right? So they would take the envelope and they would open the envelope, and oh my goodness, it would scare them every time. That's the kind of guy my dad was. He was a jokester. And the rattlesnake teeth, those were just one of his tools out of many in his trickster toy box. He knew the value of humor. He knew the healing power of laughter. And whether he was telling a deadpan joke, he'd go into a big old elaborate story, and halfway through it'd dawn on me, oh, he got me again. He is telling me a joke. It's not real. Or he would do something and he wouldn't even be around, and people would derive laughter from it. For example, on the way into Paradise, California, where my parents live, there is an old oak tree forest. And there in the forest was one particular tree. Actually, it had died long ago, but my dad didn't see a dead tree. He saw a face with an oak tree nose and oak tree arms. And would you know, my dad went home and he fashioned a big set of eyes, and he took it back to that tree and he hung it on that tree, giving that tree a real face. And that tree became the stuff of legends in Paradise, California. People would decorate it during the holidays. People put eyes on other trees. There was even a little blurb in the paper, "Who put the eyes on the trunk?" And eventually the tree just completely disintegrated. And one time when I was home, my dad pulled me aside and said, "I need you to help me do something." And I'm like, "Okay." And he had created another set of eyes, and he and I went down and found another tree to put those eyes on. That was the kind of person my dad was. And that actually brings me to the second characteristic I'd like to tell you about my dad. He was creative. Oh my gosh, he was creative. He could see something dead and could find the life in it. That, for me, is a godly characteristic, and he has passed on that tenaciousness, that creativity, that ingenuity to me and to all around him. I think we really saw him blossom when he retired finally, and he could devote himself to his woodworking shop full time. And there for a couple decades, there was a constant flow of wooden toys and furniture flowing out of him nonstop. Mom, being a consummate seamstress, Mom and Dad would go to craft fairs, and they would hit the craft fair circuit, and they had a great time giving and selling their beautiful, beautiful creations. And, I could go to him, as well as many other people did, and make some kind of chicken scratch on paper or stick figure and say, "Hey, Dad, I really need this piece of furniture in my home. Could you help me make it?" And I never once ever heard him go, "Oh, I don't want to do that. That's too difficult." No. He would just throw himself into it. And now we have our houses full of pieces that he made, furniture and toys and beautiful things. And I know that nothing lasts forever. I know that we leave this world with absolutely nothing. But how am I ever going to let go of these amazing pieces that were the tangible examples of my father's love for me? I just don't know how I'm going to do it. And that brings me to the last characteristic that I'd like to point out about my dad. He was a giver. He had a servant's heart. It was his way to serve his God by serving others, And it did not matter what the job was. He would just throw himself into it. That was the kind of love he had for his family and the people around him. And probably the best example I have of my father loving me is actually the earliest memory I have of my dad. I had to have been between the ages of 2 and 7. And I know because it was in a particular house that we lived in the Bay Area. And I was sick. And I was in bed. It was night. And I was uncomfortable. I was kind of half in and out of sleep. It was one of those really groggy. I probably had, taken cough medicine. So I was uncomfortable and awake, but I was kind of asleep, and I was complaining. And Dad comes in, and he picks me up, and he takes me in his arms, and he lays my head right there on his chest. And I remember I could hear his heart beating. And it was such a moment because not only that, I could hear his voice, low and soft, resonate in his chest, and it just resonated through my whole body. And he told me that I was going to get through this, and that it wouldn't last forever, and that he would be there for me, and that he loved me. And so, Dad, thank you so much for the honor of returning the favor as you have wrapped things up here on earth in the past month, that I could hold your hand and I could tell you that this was not going to last forever, and that you were not going to be alone, and that we loved you, and we love you still, and darn it, we're going to miss you, but I know you're in a better place. And I just thank you for being such a great dad. And thank you so much for listening to this and a few stories about my father. Thanks.